Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the LFC Journal Podcast Live, guys. I'm Owen James. This is your match day afternoon update, guys. We're live here on the channel. Look, it's going to start off with some good news for the channel. We've just hit 100 subscribers today. Fantastic news to be at that 100 subs. Thank you so much for your phenomenal support. It's great to actually get to 100. It's the first landmark, isn't it? You know, we are aiming to build this channel up. We are aiming to get this channel, back up there. But look, it is what it is, guys. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as possible. But hopefully that'll happen, sooner rather than later, and we'll get there with your support. Look, we are going to bring you daily news content. We are going to bring you daily videos. We'll obviously always, as well, to speak the truth. Look, I don't have any desire to ever get press access or etc. etc. That's not what I want. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm beholden to anybody. But at the end of the day, all I want is to bring you the latest news, to talk about the team, to give you my thoughts and opinions, and at the end of the day, get your thoughts. Thoughts and opinions as well on the team. At the end of the day, that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do is come and talk about the team and get you all that latest news. So please smash that sub, ring that notification bell, and look, we've got a fair bit to talk about. We've got a little bit to talk about here on the pod this afternoon. Sorry, it is afternoon, isn't it? Yeah, it is afternoon. First of all, I want to talk obviously a little bit about the game. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a couple of stories that are swirling around as well. We're going to talk the latest on the Mark Gahey situation as well. Also a link to Fiches. I mean, look, I know Fiches, it is one of those where you kind of go, pinch of salt, guys, pinch of salt. When it comes to this one. But Liverpool linked with a Swedish player who plays currently for Barcelona as a possible Salah replacement. An interesting one there. 20-year-old young player, very much a kind of FSG style signing this would be, very much the Michael Edwards FSG style signing. Look, I think we look back at last summer, don't we, and we see obviously last summer Liverpool go out, they spend nearly 500 million, £500 million on players, and bring in the Wirtzes, the Isaks, the kind of ready-made players, and it was very un-FSG. It's not the sort of thing they've done in the past. It's not the way I think they will continue. I think, as was suggested by one of the Liverpool journalists, I can't remember whether it was Joyce or Steele or who it was, that this was a one-off, this was a one-off this summer, just gone, and it wouldn't be happening again, which I get, I understand that. But this is a player, obviously, who is up there, has been one of those potentials for the future. And like I said, a potential Salah replacement. I mean, interesting that they're seeing him as a potential Salah replacement. What? I don't know. I think there's a lot been spoken about that. Obviously, the Elise situation. There was the Semenyo situation. I mean, I don't know what to believe on the Semenyo situation. I mean, look, in terms of Antoine Semenyo, allegedly today, despite what people are saying, there will be a move by Manchester City to obviously complete the medical today and get the deal over the line today, despite people saying there could be a twist in the tail on that one. I don't personally see that twist in the tail. I genuinely don't see a twist in the tail on it. I honestly believe that that Semenyo will complete his move to Manchester City today. I don't think Liverpool are in for him. Look, there's two stories on this, which are fascinating. Fascinating stories. The first story being that Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards wanted to bring Semenyo to the club. However, Arne Slot, I don't think Liverpool didn't want to bring him to the club. That is the first one. The second story is that there was talks between the two clubs as to Semenyo coming in. However, those stalled over wages. The situation was that Manchester City are paying him, I think it's £180,000 a week. However, Liverpool weren't prepared to pay him that. So, I don't know. I don't know what the truth is, where the truth is with this one in terms of Semenyo. All I know is he's going to be a Manchester City player. linking to that as well, I think there's the concern today, and a very real concern, that Mark Gahey will become a Manchester City player. Manchester City drew last night, obviously. They drew 1-1 with Brighton at home, and are kind of falling out of the title race to some degree. If Arsenal win tonight, which, look, everyone thinks they will, they'll be, 8 points clear of City, 14 points, 17 points clear of Liverpool. Obviously, however many it is clear of Villa as well. But Manchester City, I don't think are going to give up on the title this year. They're not going to kind of go, yeah, that's it, we're just giving up on that one. Diaz is out, obviously, and obviously they were missing Guardiola as well. They had to obviously have a young player in a lane in their team last night. I think there's a very real possibility that Manchester City will follow through on this interest of Gahey in January. Now, look, I get that there's this kind of issue, isn't there? Look, Manchester City want to buy Mark Gahey. Palace are saying that they are prepared to sell, and Glasner said as much, but they want more than the 35 million that Liverpool offered. Now, I can kind of see paying over 35 million, paying 40 million pound for a player who's only got 6 months left on his contract, to me, doesn't seem the most sensible thing in the world to do. When a player's got 6 months left on his deal, why would you spend 40 million pound when you can get him for free in the summer? Look, and I know that there's no such thing as free. In football, there is no such thing as free. People talk about these free transfers all you want. You can talk about Mark Gahey, obviously out of contract, is free in the summer. Well, he's not free because there's a signing on bonus. A lot of what the transfer fee would have been paid. Yes, not as much as 35 million, but a lot of that transfer fee will still go to the player and his agent. The wages and all those other things that come into a deal will go into that deal. So nothing's free in this world, is it? And that's a fact. And the Gahey deal won't be free in the summer. Let's get that straight. But look, at the end of the day, this situation is concerning. It is worrying. Now, if Manchester City are prepared to commit £40 million to Mark Gahey, I think there's a likelihood that Gahey will do that. Now, there were stories this morning on social media, and I get social media, not the best place, is poisonous. There is a kind of, a toxicity, isn't there, to a lot of what social media says. But, one of the couple of sources this morning reporting on the Mark Gahey situation, talking about this situation with Mark Gahey, saying that basically that the player is thought to favour a deal to go to Manchester City over Liverpool now. This was the update that came out that I saw this morning in a couple of sources, which was that Manchester City hold the advantage over Liverpool when it comes to Mark Gahey, due to the fact that Gahey doesn't see Liverpool as being as good an option as Manchester City to win trophies. He thinks and he believes that under Pep Guardiola, he's got more chance of winning the Premier League and the Champions League than he has at Liverpool under Arne Slot. And it now appears that the player prefers the Manchester City project to the Anfield project, and he sees it more as being the way that Guardiola's way, and going to Manchester City is a better option. Look, I get that. I understand the frustration, and I kind of, to some degree, is, to me, I can get the frustration there because, Liverpool this season have not been good. We've not been good at all. And I think, missing out on Gahey in the summer was a large part of what we've done wrong. Had we got Gahey in the summer, had we gone out there and actually spent that 35, 40 million pound and got Gahey over the line, which I think if Liverpool had gone in for Gahey earlier in the window, it would have been a done deal. It would have given Palace time to buy a player. It would have given us, obviously, negotiation time, which obviously ran out. So at the end of the day, I do believe that missing out on Gahey would have changed a lot. I think it would have made us more defensively sound. It may have stopped Slot going so defensive at certain periods. He spoke yesterday, didn't he, about the fact that after we shipped so many goals, he saw the need to kind of try and shore things up at the back, which I get, when you're conceding lots of goals, as we were at the start of this season, which was in contrast to last season. You do look at it and go, well, I've got to do something about that. I can't allow that to continue. And I think he did do that. And that's kind of part of what's ruined the football because, Liverpool are much more defensive these days than they were last season. I mean, if you go back to last season, you certainly saw, not as many players staying back and dropping back to defend. You look at a situation now where when the opposition have 3 forwards, we're constantly sitting 4. When they've got 4 forwards, we're constantly sitting 5. So we're constantly holding back players to shore up that back and to ensure that we don't concede. Which is obviously, I think, is killing the style of football, which I understand, why he did it, but it isn't working. Now, if we got Gahey in the summer, I think that may have negated that need, because a lot of the weakness at the back has come not only, yes, from injuries to the full-backs, or to the right-backs, should we say, but to the fact that the centre-backs, the 2 of them, look, yes, Konaté's been the worst by a massive street, but Virgil's not been great this season. And I think you've got an element there where, for me, you've got 2 centre-backs who are underperforming and are playing not great. And as Arne Slot himself said at the time, Konaté's at the scene of the crime an awful lot, isn't he? And had we had Gahey there, maybe that negates that. Maybe that stops that from happening. So, look, I do believe that had we had Gahey, that that it may have stopped some of this defensive issues, and it may also maybe just have kind of stopped us going so defensive at key periods. I mean, I may be wrong. I may be talking out the top of my head, but that's just my take on the whole situation. And look, if Liverpool are to miss out on a player that basically was, I think, sat at one point in a hotel room wearing a Liverpool kit, ready to say goodbye to Crystal Palace, ready to come to the club, then what the hell's gone wrong? Why? And I can understand the argument over money, but unfortunately, as I said on the pod yesterday, if you want to buy a Ferrari, you can't have a Ferrari for free or a Ferrari for a tenner. A Ferrari costs whatever it costs, hundreds of thousands of pounds or millions of pounds. I've never bought a Ferrari, I don't know. A Lamborghini costs hundreds of thousands of pounds. An Aston Martin costs hundreds of thousands of pounds. You can't get one for nothing. You can't go and shop in Marks and Spencer's if you haven't got any money. At the end of the day, you've got to pay the prices. Now, if the price for Gahey at this point in the season to make sure you get him is 35-40 million, even if you know in the summer he's going to be free, but he's not going to get to the summer, for me, you've got to go out and you've got to do the deal. Now, I don't know where we're at in terms of, does Gahey really favour a move to City, or does he favour a move to Liverpool still? I mean, look, this is all supposition. This is all, like I said, it's talk in the media. It's talk in social media as well. So I don't get, I understand, I understand that you've got to take all that with a pinch of salt. But look, at the end of the day, for me, if Liverpool miss out on Gahey in this window, then I think big questions need to be asked. Big questions need to be asked. And this time not of the manager. This time of Richard Hughes, of Michael Edwards. So there's got to be something. There's got to be something done there. And look, I know we need a centre-back. And Arne Slot can talk all he wants about this team's in a good place for now, for the midterm, for the future. But we know, as I said on the video that I released this morning, you look at the centre-back room and you've got Gomez, who's always injured. Virgil, who's not getting any younger, has got 18 months left on his deal. Konaté probably won't be here next season. And Leone, yes, is a very talented, promising young player, but has not got Premier League experience. Now, we don't know how... And look, I'm sure that Leone will be fine in the Premier League. I'm sure that he's going to be a very good player. And I think had Leone stayed fit this season, we would have seen quite a lot of him, I feel. But even so, you're left with a situation where realistically you could actually be down to 2 centre-backs by the end of the season, with Gomez being linked to AC Milan again. Joe, I think, wants to play first-team football. He's not going to get that at Liverpool. So he could well be off as well in the summer. So you're down to 2 centre-backs. Now, look, one now and one in the summer, I think, is a sensible option for Liverpool. We saw the Ordóñez links earlier in the window. They obviously haven't come off for whatever reason, despite the Ecuadorian media claiming it was really close. But obviously then it was sort of debunked by the likes of Paul Joyce and Lewis Steele and all those. But, for me, a centre-back is an absolute must. A failure to come out of this window without a centre-back would be criminal. Criminal in the extreme. by Liverpool Football Club. And I honestly believe, if you asked me now, if you said to me, Owen, put your money where your mouth is, what happens in January? What happens, in terms of, in terms of this, in terms of the club, what happens in terms of centre-backs, in terms of buying players in January? I'd honestly say to you, I don't think we buy anybody. I genuinely don't believe anyone comes in this window. I think in this window, we will come out with no signings. Not for the first team anyway. Obviously, we've looked like we've signed Moran Dye, the young 18-year-old Senegalese centre-back who will go straight into Rob Page's under-21 squad. We're getting the Austrian lad, Ndoiki, as well. Look, that's what it is. But they're for the future. They're not for now. And I get, we need to plan for the future. But the one thing I'd say is to those two young centre-backs joining the club, don't be believing you're going to get a lot of game time under Arne Slot, because to me, he doesn't seem to trust younger players at all in the slightest. So, hey, I don't know, what is with young players. Slot appears to have a problem with young players for whatever reason. I don't know what his issue realistically is with young players. One player, so I don't know what it is. Right, let's look at a transfer target, shall we? Someone who's been mentioned for Liverpool FC. This is the guy here. Right, so this is a transfer target for Liverpool. It's like I said, it's Fiches who are rumouring this player to Liverpool. His name is Rooney Badagi, or Badai. I knew I'd massacre his name. What an unfortunate first name to have after all. Rooney. Come on. And it might not be pronounced Rooney, but let's face it, if your first name is Rooney, you'd change it, wouldn't you? Who wants to be known after that fat Evertonian? So Rooney Bardghji, spelled Bardghji. He is 20 years old. He was born in Kuwait City, but is Swedish by nationality. There we go. He is a current Swedish international, has 3 caps, 3 goals for Sweden. Now, he is currently with Barcelona. That's where he currently resides. He's 20 years old, like I said. He's a young, talented, up-and-coming player. He holds Swedish and Syrian nationality, but plays for Sweden. 5'8". He's a right winger, but he can also play left side as well. He started his career with Malmo, youth career of Malmo. He then went to Copenhagen in Denmark. He's played for Copenhagen and for Barcelona as well. Like I said, he was born in Kuwait to a Syrian family from Aleppo. He's of Armenian descent through his paternal grandfather. His family moved to Sweden when he was 6 years old for a brighter future, and that's how he gets his Swedish nationality through his birth, through through his residency qualifications. That's how he becomes Swedish. In terms of him this season, he has made some appearances for Barcelona. He played in the Super Cup, where he scored a goal and had 2 assists. He's also made 9 appearances in La Liga for Barcelona, where he scored 1 goal, 1 assist. Because unlike Liverpool, Barcelona actually give their young players an opportunity to play. He's only played in 16% of their starting 11s and played 14% of their minutes, and has a 4% goal participation rate. He's made 3 Champions League appearances, all as a substitute, and has had 1 assist. He's played in the Copa del Rey as well, where he's made 1 appearance in the Copa del Rey, playing 83% of the minutes in that competition. He's under contract till 2029, and his value is around only €10 million at the moment. However, it is thought that the fee for Rooney Bardghji would be a lot more than that. Now, like I said, it is Fiches who are reporting this, so you've got to take it with a tiny pinch of salt. The fee would be thought to be somewhere in the region of about £40 million for this player. And like I said, he's seen as a potential Mo Salah replacement. He's direct, he's a goal-scoring instinct, and he has the pace and aggression to succeed in British football. That is what is being reported out of Spain. In terms of his overall career, like I said to you, look, he came through the system at Malmo, Copenhagen. In terms of those, let's have a little look at what he did there. Copenhagen, 84 appearances, 15 goals and an assist. Played for Copenhagen's under-19s as well, 21 appearances, 7 goals, 4 assists. Barcelona total appearances is 14 appearances, 2 goals, 4 assists. He's played in the Super League. He's played in the Swedish Championship, in the Danish Championship. He's played in the Champions League. He's played in the Conference League. He's played in the Copa del Rey. He has Swedish nationality and played for Sweden. Actually, he's primarily a right winger, but can also play as a left winger as well. So, certainly a player who could come in and be one of those wide forwards that we are really missing. We never replace Luis Diaz. Salah's only got 18 months left on his deal. He isn't getting any better, is he? He's not getting any younger. The strengths of this guy are his dribbling and control. He's got exceptional close control, agility, and the ability to manoeuvre in tight spaces. Good, which is useful for the Premier League, where you are under a lot of pressure and the pressure is intense. He's a powerful ball striker, capable of scoring with both feet, particularly effective at cutting in, one of the things that Salah does well. So it would be kind of that straight kind of replacement. He has electric pace and acceleration, which makes him very dangerous on the counter. And the one thing Liverpool do miss is pace. We've got Frimpong, who's quick. This guy would be a very quick, speedy, attacking player. Again, something that we don't really have. He's got off-ball intelligence, superb recognition of space and intelligent movement as well. He's got a good high work rate. He's energetic in defensive phases. He presses very effectively. Now, one of the areas Liverpool have been really weak on this season is that press. He would bring that press to Liverpool. So, look, that would certainly be something that would be beneficial to the club. He's versatile as well, can play in a number of different positions. He does have some areas for improvement, but like I said, he's 20 years old. He's still developing. He needs to improve his ability in the air. That's standard. He requires work on consistency. So one of the big worries about him is his consistent output over a series of games. But again, as I've said, he's a young player. That's often something that happens with young players. So, Rooney Bardghji, or Bardghji, or whatever he's called, seems, as an option, like I said, an interesting option, shall we say, for Liverpool. I like the sound of him. I think he's a good player. I think he sounds a good player. I haven't seen a lot of him. He at the end of the day, he is playing for Barcelona. You don't get to play for Barcelona if you're a complete mug. So this is a really interesting link. And like I said to you, I think, there's talk of Michael Olise, there's talk of Bradley Barcola, there's talk of, these top-level, top-end players. And, Michael Olise obviously is the top name, the name that I think a lot of Liverpool fans would want at the club. But 100 million plus to get Olise, and I can't see that happening. Genuinely can't see that happening. Like I said to you, I think, as has been reported at the start of the season, the summer was a one-off. So, this kind of signing, I think, is very much more how the club are looking now for the future, rather than the 150 million pound players, like the Olises of this world. So Rooney Bardghji, I'd love to know your thoughts. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think of Rooney Bardghji, the Swedish player. Interesting. Right, look, let's move it along a little bit. We've talked a little bit about transfer business. Let's talk about tonight's game. Look, it's seen by many as a Liverpool D-Day. Liverpool are the champions. There's so much talk. All Liverpool are playing the champions tonight. Well, Arsenal are not the champions. Liverpool are the champions still. Look, I admit that Liverpool will probably not be the champions at the end of the season. I admit that that Arsenal will probably be the champions at the end of the season. I think that's pretty much a given, isn't it? I think Arsenal are going to become the champions at the end of the season. And look, fair play to them. Fair play to them. They've been the best team this season. They've been the best team by an absolute country mile this season. Of course they have. They've been superb this season. So fair play to them. But look, at the end of the day, we've got to go out there tonight and kind of try and put down this little marker to them and say, look, yeah, you may be 14 points clear of us. You may be 8 points clear of City. We're going to be, 5 points clear of City. But at the end of the day, we've got to lay down a marker. We've got to lay down a marker. We've got to, try and get in there and do something. Do something to try and arrest this endless Gooner march to the title. And look, I know not all Arsenal fans are this, but Arsenal fans are insufferable. They are the most deluded, arrogant, over-the-top bunch on planet Earth. And when you consider that Manchester United exist, It's crazy to think that, isn't it? Olivia Davis says, we have no chance tonight. Well, Olivia, let's hope we have. Let's hope we have a little bit of a chance tonight. You never know. I think, personally think that Liverpool will be pragmatic tonight. I think they will defend. I think they'll go down very much the same route as he went against Manchester City last season, where we'll play very solid defensive formation and look to frustrate Arsenal as much as possible. And then hit them on the counter or hit them with a set piece. That will be the way they play. I don't think Liverpool will go out there tonight and go toe-to-toe with Arsenal. I just don't think that will be what Slot does, because, we're not playing well. We're not playing good football at the moment. The options appear to be severely limited. Now, there's a lot of stories doing the rounds this morning that Ekitike obviously didn't travel, that Chiesa hasn't travelled, and Konate hasn't travelled with the squad to London. Now, look, that may be an absolute load of bollocks. It's just what's being reported. Now, I can see Ekitike not being fit and not playing. Arne Slot himself talked about Ekitike in his presser yesterday. He spoke about the fact that Ekitike, is carrying this injury. Had this game been a bit later, it may have been better. He's only had limited training time. If that muscle injury is not 100%, is he going to risk him? Because the balance that Arne's got to put into tonight's game is, yes, this is a big game tonight, but if Hugo isn't 100% fit, you play Hugo tonight and he gets injured and it's a more serious injury and he's out for any length of time, we've then got a situation where we have no fit strikers. Jaden Danns is still not back. Alexander Isak obviously is out till probably the end of the season, if not longer. And if Hugo Ekitike is out for any length of time as well, at least Liverpool with no forwards. So, can Arne afford to take that risk? Probably not. So, there may be a situation where Arne looks at this and goes, do you know what? I'm not going to risk him tonight. As much as this is a kind of do or die, must win kind of game for me and for the club, then he's not going to risk Ekitike, is he? So, look, it's a difficult one for Arne tonight. Now, Chiesa, obviously, there's a lot of rumours going around Chiesa tonight. So I don't know. Some people are saying he hasn't travelled because he's talking to Italian clubs. Some people are saying he's injured. Some people are saying he's ill. Lots of different stories. Some people are saying that he actually has travelled. He's just travelling down later than everyone else. So I guess we'll see tonight when the team and the squad is named whether Chiesa has travelled. I don't think it matters if he does travel or doesn't travel. Arne's not going to use him unless it's for the last 6 to 10 minutes in junk time, in garbage time. Because he doesn't trust him. He's not going to start him. I think there's a lot of us hoping that when Mo was away at AFCON, that Arne would have no choice but to use Federico Chiesa. And we're seeing now that Arne doesn't want to use Federico Chiesa. Olivia says Chiesa off to Juventus. I suppose you mean or Napoli there, Olivia. That's what's being talked about. People talking about these two Italian clubs trying to take him on loan. I don't know. Look, I don't think Liverpool would see a loan as an option. Now, there is a story going around this morning that Richard Hughes will sanction loan with the option or obligation to buy for Chiesa in this window once Salah is back from AFCON, which to me would be, unless Liverpool have got a replacement lined up, would be ridiculous, because then that would leave us with an unfit Isak, a half-fit Ekitike, Gakpo, Salah, Rio and Gamoa. Now, we know that the manager won't play Rio and Gamoa, so that one rules that one out. So you're down to 4 forwards. Salah's form is not great this season, as we've seen, and it may change. He may come back from AFCON, a new player. He may come back from AFCON in the best of form. Isak is going to be out at the end of the year, so that's leaving you effectively with Gakpo, Ekitike and Salah. Now, if any of those guys get suspended or injured for any long period, it leaves you with 2. So unless there's a replacement there, I can't see that happening. It, to me, is a strange one. Now, I get that Chiesa may want to move. Of course I do. Because at the end of the day, Chiesa is getting no football. He's probably getting really frustrated. And I think we've seen in the last couple of games a little bit of a change in Chiesa. I think he looks fed up. He looks fed up. He looks, a little bit like, he looks a little bit defeated. He does look a little bit like, what am I doing here? Why am I even trying? Whatever I try doesn't seem to work with the manager. So, Chiesa not travelling is an interesting one. It could be, like I said, for any number of reasons. It could be that, yes, he is talking to Juventus and Napoli, or it could be that he's injured, or it could be that he's ill, or it could be that he's travelling down later, so we don't know yet. The other worrying one was Konate. Now, look, I know that Ibu has been all over the place at this moment this season, and his head's gone. His head is in, I don't know where it is, Munich, Madrid, Paris, home, on holiday, in the bank. I don't know where his head is. And his performances have been very, very mixed this season. On the whole, they haven't been great. But him not being fit, if that's the case, if he isn't available for tonight's game, it's a concern. Because then you're down to putting Joe Gomez in from the start. Now, Joe's only just come back from injury. So, can Joe realistically play 90 minutes? No. Can he put in an hour? Possibly. Can he start? Possibly. So it's a big risk because, you face a situation with Joe Gomez having just come back from injury where you start him tonight, he breaks down after 15, 20 minutes. What do you do then? If it is that Konate is out, then it's a huge, huge hit for Liverpool tonight. And look, it just shows realistically what I was talking about at the start of the pod, which was that desperation for a centre-back that everybody bar Liverpool Football Club can quite clearly see. If it's not him, what does Arne do? Does he go with Andy Robertson? Does he bring him in as a centre-back? Endo's not fit. I suppose he could drop Grav back into centre-back if he's not prepared to risk Gomez. And then you go with Maka as your sitter, as your six, and Sobbo and Jones in midfield, which, with the best will in the world, Maka's not really a six. So you then weaken that sitting midfield area. I know Grav hasn't been at his best as a six this year. He's been more an 8 this year. But it's a difficult situation, and it's not the sort of situation you want to be in when you're travelling to the Emirates to take on Arsenal. Yes, if we were going to, let's say, play, I don't know, let's say Wolves away tonight, or we were going away to play, I don't know who else, West Ham away tonight, or someone like that, then you wouldn't be as worried maybe. But, going away at Arsenal where they've got so much attacking potential and attacking threat, it is a concern if Ibu's not fit and you've got to rely on Joe Gomez or you've got to rely on Andy Robertson playing centre-back. That's a worry. That's a worry for me. So, look, you've got a situation there where Arne's going to have a big decision to make tonight if Ibu Konate hasn't travelled. And, look, realistically, he's probably going to go with Joe Gomez. But you've then got, like I said, the real concern that Joe has just returned, and how long can Joe play for? Now, Joe can't do 90. There's no way that Joe Gomez can do 90 minutes, given the fact that he's just returned from injury. So then where do you go? Because realistically, you've got nobody on the bench then. Unless, like I said, you drop Gravenberch back in there, which, is a possibility, I suppose, to drop Gravenberch back into that midfield, back into that defence. Sorry, that is a possibility. Look, it is for me a concern. It is a concern. In terms of the team tonight, if the stories about who has and hasn't travelled are true, I can see us doing something like this. I've just dropped it in the live chat. Alisson in goal, Bradley, Gomez, Virgil and Robertson as a back four. I think he'll go with Robbo because of the fact he'll want a little bit more solidity there, a little bit more experience there against Arsenal. And, I think given the fact that if you've got Jones and Wirtz on the left, they're going to tuck in a little bit more. It's going to leave Saka one-on-one with that fullback. And he's probably more likely defensively to trust Robbo up against Saka than he would Kerkez up against Saka. Look, I like Milos Kerkez. I think he will be a good player eventually. But defensively, he's not as strong as Andy Robertson. So up against Saka, to me, you've got to go with Robbo there. Obviously, I think that Mikel Arteta will pick Gyökeres tonight. So if he picks Gyökeres, then Virgil's got to pick Gyökeres up. Konate did a brilliant job against Gyökeres at Anfield. He was brilliant against him, had Gyökeres in his pocket. And look, I don't think Gyökeres is that good a player. I think he's a very good Championship footballer. I think he's a average Premier League footballer. And I get, he scored all those goals, but it was in Portugal. And Darwin Núñez scored shit tons of goals in Portugal. And look at how he did over here. So I think that Gyökeres, that's a job for Virgil to pick up. So And I think Bradley will play out right back because I think, again, he'll want a more solid defensive right back up against Trossard or up against Martinelli, who I think, I think Arteta will go with Martinelli at left wing of the three. So I think the front three for Arsenal will be Saka, Gyökeres and Martinelli. And I think that's why we'll perhaps go with that back four. Gomez, like I said, will have to play if Konate hasn't travelled, as the stories appear to suggest. Midfield three, Gravenberch, Sobbo and Jones. I think he'll start Jones over McAllister. McAllister's form is just not good at the moment. Jones on the left with Wirtz. They have linked up well. They have played well together. So I think we'll see Jones there. Sobbo obviously has to play in midfield for me. His energy, his box-to-box, his talent there, is just unmistakable. I've got to say, there's certain Arsenal fans out there that need to give a little bit of a heads gone on set situation too. I've watched a few videos on TikTok. We do have a TikTok channel, guys. It is on the screen. You can see it. Where Arsenal fans saying that Odegaard is a better player than Szoboszlai. I mean, ridiculous. Absolutely stupid argument. Not even in the same class as Szoboszlai or Odegaard. Odegaard's a good player, don't get me wrong, but he's not in the same class as Dominic Szoboszlai. So, our midfield tonight, obviously, it will Gravenberch, Sobbo and Jones up against Odegaard, Declan Rice, who is in great form at the moment, and I think Zubimendi, obviously, the guy who was linked with Liverpool. So, look, Sobbo, Jones and Grav are going to have to out-battle, out-fight those three, and it'll be a tough game. They are three very good midfield players. Our attacking three, I think he'll go for Frimpong. Because of the fact he will try and keep it solid defensively, I think he'll look to Frimpong's pace to get in behind Arsenal on that right-hand side and put the balls into the box for Cody. So I think that's what he'll go with. I think he'll go with Frimpong as right wing. He won't play Chiesa. Salah's not here. Ekitike's probably not fit. Who else do you play there? So I think that's probably the option there. Gakpo will go through the middle because obviously Ekitike doesn't look like he's fit. And look, I actually think Cody's better through the middle because, and I know Cody likes to play left wing, but it stops him doing that one-trick pony thing. Everyone knows that if Cody Gakpo's got the ball on the left side, the first thing he's going to do when he runs at the box is cutting on his right foot to shoot. So everyone just shows him outside and forces him onto his left foot to defend him. He's easy to defend against, whereas through the middle, he's got more of an option to shoot. Doesn't have to cut in, can be more direct. And I think that probably suits him a little bit better. So probably Cody through the middle. And I think Florian Wirtz then has to start on that left-hand side, basically through a lack of options. Your worry is at 65, 70 minutes when both teams start to make changes, who've Liverpool got on the bench that can come on and make a difference? If Chiesa's not fit, Chiesa's not there. Rio and Gamoa, he won't use him for whatever reason. McAllister, I think, is the one option you bring on. But then you look at Arsenal's bench where they're going to have Trossard if Martinelli starts. They're going to have Marino. They're going to have Norgard, Gabriel Jesus. They're going to have Miles Lewis-Skelly. They've got a lot more options to bring off the bench. That is my one slight concern there for that game tonight. Now, look, the other worry for me tonight going into this game is the set pieces. Look, set pieces are really an issue. And Slot talked about it, didn't he, in the presser yesterday? He talked about set pieces. He talked about set pieces being an issue. He talked about set pieces being a worry. And the fact that we've conceded, obviously, a lot of set piece goals. And teams that are doing well this season, Coventry in the Championship, I think have scored 21 goals from set pieces. Arsenal, I think, again, are the top scorers on set pieces in the Premier League. And Arne spoke about the fact that, had we not conceded certain goals from set pieces and perhaps scored more from set pieces, we'd be higher in the league. What if, Arne? Yes. And the other shit that he was trotting out about has been unlucky and only outplayed in one game, which I think is ridiculous. We've been outplayed in a number of games. I think Villa at home is the only one I kind of think off the top of my head where we actually outplayed the opposition. So, Arne can talk all the shit he wants about not being outplayed. But, at the end of the day, set pieces to me are a big worry tonight and the ability to defend set pieces. And Arne, can keep talking about this. But one thing I'm going to say, Arne, is it's your responsibility. You're the head coach. Fucking sort it out, mate. Sort it out, mate. You need to sort it out. I think we do need. It's going to be a big thing of how we mark. We need to go, I think, man for man on them and not have any stupid situations where you've got small players on their biggest players. Gabriel's got to be clearly taken by one of the big guys, as has Saliba as well, both of whom are huge threats from set pieces. So, you've got to, for me, have those man markers picking them up, the Virgils, the Gomez's, etc., etc., the threats from those set pieces. But that is a big point now. We need to, ensure that we don't concede a lot of corners or a lot of the long throwing situations that Arsenal can exploit, because we know how potent they are from those situations. Now, look, to me, it's worrying that we're going into a game tonight, and as Liverpool fans, we're worried about playing Arsenal. How many times under Jurgen were we ever worried about playing Arsenal? How many times did we sit there under Jurgen Klopp and go, "Oh, I'm really concerned we've got Arsenal today"? I can't remember one. I honestly cannot remember one where where we actually had a concern over it. So, look, at the end of the day, for me, it's a worry that we've got this feeling that we are scared of playing Arsenal tonight, or some people are scared of playing Arsenal tonight. I'm not saying that I am, but it is a concern. And look, to me, tonight is a game where we're going to have to be really pragmatic. We're going to have to be really solid at the back, and perhaps we are going to have to go down the route of boring football, possession based, keep it tight. Look for a set piece to score, look for a breakaway to score, because I think, to be honest with you, if we go out and go toe-to-toe with Arsenal, we could actually get hammered by them. They are a very good side. Now, one report I have seen today, which I don't believe for a minute, was a report in one source, I can't remember the source, unfortunately, off the top of my head, that if Liverpool lose tonight, Arne Slot will be sacked as Liverpool manager. That tonight will be used as the straw that breaks the camel's back, that we go 17 points behind Arsenal, and then that's it for Arne. I don't see that happening. I genuinely do not see that one happening. Even if we lose 3-4-0 tonight, I still don't see him being sacked. I don't think there's any truth in that at all. I'll be honest with you, I think he's here till at least the end of the season. If he is going to go, and it's a big if, he'll go in the summer. But I don't think a defeat tonight guarantees that Slot gets the sack. I really don't. Predictions. Head says 3-1 Arsenal. Head says, that's what the head says, as much as it pains me to say. And look, I hate saying that. As a Liverpool fan, I hate sitting here predicting us to lose. I just see them as a much better side than we are. Hart says 1-0 Liverpool. I've got this feeling, guys, and I might be wrong, and I might be 100% wrong on this one, but I've got this little bit of a feeling that it's going to be the most boring, dour game where we play really defensively, and it's really just nothing much for 90 minutes. And then we get a set piece in the 92nd, 93rd minute or 93rd minute, and we win 1-0. I've just got this feeling that it's going to be a 1-0 win tonight. I don't know why. But I've just got this little feeling it's going to be a 1-0 win tonight. I might be wrong. I've been wrong a lot this season. I hope I'm not wrong. I hope I'm right that we do get it. You know what? I would settle for a boring, dour 1-0 win tonight. I really genuinely would settle for it now. If the footballing gods came to me, then yes, I think that would happen. Right, guys, thank you for watching the LFC Journal. Hope you're okay. Hope you're all okay. Hope you've enjoyed the content. If you have, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Obviously, help us to keep on going and growing, guys. It would be brilliant. Thank you for your phenomenal support to this point, and I'll catch you on the next live.